Drastic times call for drastic measures, and there's no doubt Kevin Rudd's $42 billion stimulus package is a last-ditch attempt to stop the Australian economy from falling into recession. The package will send the budget into deficit and increase national debt by around $118 billion. The big question, though, will it do the trick? Peter Costello was at the helm of the Australian economy for 11 years and does join us now live from Canberra. Good morning to you, Mr Costello. We do appreciate your time this morning and very interested on your thoughts. 45-year low for interest rates and $42 billion thrown at the economy. Are these measures enough from where you're sitting?
Well, I think the monetary policy response has been very important. It's good that the Reserve Bank has acted as it has in recent months, although, of course, in the early part of 2008, it was still tightening monetary policy. As you look back, obviously, that was a mistake to be tightening in 2008, but it's reversed direction, and I welcome the news very much yesterday. The fiscal package, well, it's 4% of GDP. It's a huge spend, although over a number of years. And I think that the quality of the spend is not what we really would have wanted. The government is
just on that,
checks.
Mr Costello, if we can talk about the mix of spending there, $28 billion of it into infrastructure, but the way that's spent is on the maintenance of school, building of schools and on green projects. Is this how you would have spent the money to stimulate the economy and set it up for the long term? No,
as I said, I think it's a low quality spend. Of course, there's nothing wrong with improving schools, but normally when you're having a fiscal package designed to stimulate an economy, you would expect money to be directed towards business, lowering costs of employing labour, lowering taxes so that businesses could put on extra staff. It's good to have school buildings repaired, but it's not going to be adding to job creation in the way that you could have done with a 4% spend of GDP. Now, insulating houses, for example, well, it's all very nice if you have your house insulated, but other than for the people that make the fiberglass insulation, it's hard to see huge benefits flowing in terms of job creation. So I would look at that package as something that's been cobbled together very quickly. It's got poor quality spend, and I don't think that package is going to make a very big difference to Australia's economic prospects. The economy is definitely slowing. If it goes into recession, this package won't save it. If it survives recession, it won't be because of this package.
We've got Sri Jagaraja here now in Singapore just buying into the conversation. Sri, you wanted to put a question to Mr Costello?
Carol, thank you. Yes, Mr Costello, good to see you, sir. In that case, given that commodities and resources, the industry there is such a central part of Australia's revenue generation, goes into the GDP, do you think the spending should have been targeted in that part?
Well, the interesting thing about the statement yesterday is that revenues, in fact, won't be dropping off very much in the current financial year. There'll be drop-offs in revenue in future financial years, but the reason why the budget in Australia will move from surplus to deficit is new spending measures. Measures we're talking about to repair school buildings and insulate homes, and the government's also announced a whole series of cheques, $950 cheques that it will send to various people in the Australian economy. Now, again, I think if a family gets a cheque for $950, that's good, but many of these families will save these cheques. At a time when the economy is moving into recession and unemployment's rising, if people get extra income, what you actually tend to do is save it. If you really want to get money out quickly into job stimulation, you normally do it by giving incentives for labour, cutting the costs of labour, cutting the costs of tax. That's why I say it's a poorly directed spend.
You're just on that spending package. We did see the $10 billion disappear last time, arguably into the pockets of the retailers and also into some poker machines. This time round, though, there are suggestions that households might save more of that. Would that be welcome? Would you accept the deleveraging process going on as a welcome sign for the Australian economy if households did take that approach?
Well, personally, I can understand it. I think if a household feels under financial stress, maybe they've got unpaid bills, they'll use additional income to pay off those bills. This doesn't, by the way, generate extra demand. The demand's already there in the form of the service for which the bill has been rendered. So they will pay off bills. They might put some money into a bank account. Personally, I understand that. And really, at a time when business is trying to deleverage, you can understand households trying to deleverage. But, of course, this is not the reason why the money is being given. The money is being given to families, the government says, to try and get them to consume more, to lift their expenditure. And this is why I think the fiscal measures themselves won't have a dramatic influence on Australia's growth prospects. If the Australian economy continues to grow, and the government is forecasting that it will, that is, it will avoid a negative growth year, then it won't be because of this package.
So what, in your mind, would have been the best course of action for the administration to have taken, Mr. Costello? You say that this stimulus hasn't been targeted correctly. It's poor quality spend. Where should it have been targeted?
Well, I think it would have been better if the government had done something to bring forward tax cuts which have already been legislated. I think benefits which would have encouraged additional labour to be put on, some of the employment costs. I think the government should have announced at this point that it won't be proceeding with industrial relations changes which are anti-job creation. I think that would have been warmly welcomed by the business community. The measures that it's taken, it seemed to have been cobbled together because the money can be got out the door quickly. But for the reasons I've already said, I think it will actually be low-quality public expenditure. Yeah,
it's a good point you make. Only $2.7 billion in tax breaks for small businesses, which is obviously a very small chunk of the $42 billion. But I just want to move down to government debt, because this is something that you spent years paying off. Now, on the back of these deficits, this string of deficits that the Rudd government will now run, they will try and finance this by lifting the $75 billion cap on the stock of Commonwealth government bonds to finance it. What are your thoughts on that and how that positions Australia's budget position and finances?
Well, of course, one of the things that put Australia in a very strong position is after running 10 surplus budgets, we managed to reduce Commonwealth government debt to zero. That is, in net terms, the Commonwealth government had no debt. We used to issue some bonds just for the sake of the market, and that's why we had a limit on the issuance. Of course, now that we're going into deficit and we'll be running deficits for several years, and in my view, probably quite longer than the government hopes, there will have to be very large borrowings by the Commonwealth government. Could be in excess of $100 billion over the next few years. So that, of course, will put Australia right back where we were before we ran all of those surplus budgets. Having cleared our debt, the government has now put Australia on a course where we'll be right back in it. And from my point of view, the hard work of the last 10 years has been more or less reversed in the last 10 months. But I suppose from the financial markets point of view, it'll mean that there'll be a lot more Australian paper out there. The financial markets used to complain to me that there wasn't enough paper, enough bonds on issue, that they actually wanted some more. So the financial markets might actually see an opportunity there. A bit of a silver lining in that, indeed. Peter Costello, we do thank you for your time today. We do appreciate your thoughts and your commentary on what has been a momentous time for the Australian economy. So thank you for joining us today. And Mr. Costello is the former Treasurer of Australia. Well, coming up, we will take a short break. We'll take a look at Alumina's profit. It has been a fairly tough year for the company. The falling price of aluminium has seen its profits slump 61% over the past 12 months. But CEO John Bevan is confident about the next 12 months, so we'll hear from him after the break.